For those of you who like to read stories of big or influential figures, of course you are no stranger to the name Nelson Mandela. He is one of the great and influential figures in the 20th century. His name became a symbol of the struggle of the black community to achieve equality and equal rights throughout the world. He is the first black South African to become president by full representation, in a multiracial election. His name became a symbol of the struggle of the black community to achieve equality and equal rights throughout the world. He is the first black South African to become president by full representation, in a multiracial election. The emergence of the figure of Mandela in the South African political scene brought a breath of fresh air to black people who at that time felt oppressed. Nelson Mandela received international acclaim for his anti-colonial and anti-apartheid stance, receiving the 1993 Nobel Peace Prize, the U.S. Presidential Medal of Freedom, the Order of Lenin of the Soviet Union, and more than 250 awards. Nelson Mandela is often dubbed the father of the nation, especially for the South African country. The following is a full review about Nelson Mandela which has been summarized as a motivating inspiration for you. As one of the great figures of the 20th century, Nelson Mandela's inspiring life story is interesting to explore. The following is the biography of the father of the South African nation that you should know. 1. Childhood. Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela was born on July 18, 1918 in the village of Mavezo, South Africa. His father named Nkosi Mfakanyuzwa Henry Mandela was a local tribal chief and his mother was Nosekeni Nonkofi Fanny Mandela. He was the last son of a third wife and had 12 brothers. Mandela grew up with rituals, customs and superstitions that made him understand African culture. Mandela's father died of lung cancer when he was 9 years old. His father's death turned Mandela into a dissident figure. 2. Adolescence. Nelson Mandela and his friends went to Tyhalarha to undergo a ritual circumcision that became a symbol that they were adults, at the age of 16. At the same time, Chief Malejkele, the king's brother gave a speech that, "The white population has dominated the black community. So blacks must serve white people." Mandela also expressed his disapproval to Chief Malejkele after hearing those words. He has the determination to fight for independence and uphold the rights of the black population. 3. Education. Mandela is the first child to attend formal school in his family. His mother put him in a Methodist school when he was 7 years old. His teacher baptized him and gave him the name Nelson. At the age of 16, he continued his education at the Clarkberry Boarding Institute and studied various Western cultures. Mandela is known as an intelligent student and has achieved a number of brilliant academic achievements. Then in 1939, he studied at the University College of Fort Hare to get a Bachelor of Arts, B.A. He was also studying at the University of the Witwatersrand taking a legal studies program at the same time. Unfortunately, he was forced to be expelled from the university because he participated in student protests against university policies. His adoptive parents were angry after knowing this and forced him to marry. Mandela, who did not agree with the decision, chose to leave home, and lived in Johannesburg until 1941. He also underwent various professions ranging from mine security officer, shop clerk, to land agent. Even so, he still did not forget his education and continued his education at the University College of Fort Hare until he received a bachelor's degree in 1943. Then he continued to study law at the University of the Witwatersrand, Johannesburg. 4. Plunge into the world of politics. Mandela began to enter politics in 1942 and joined the political party African National Congress, ANC. The party's goal is to liberate South Africa. The biggest factor for him joining the party was the white colonialists' arbitrary actions against blacks. Nelson Mandela was influenced by the thoughts of Walter Sisulu, one of the leaders of the ANC party. He often spends time at Sisulu's house with Anton Lembede and Oliver Tambo. Nelson During a general meeting of ANC members in Durban, Nelson Mandela gave a speech and delivered a protest in front of 10,000 people. He was arrested and detained in Marshall Square for a while. His arrest made the number of ANC members increase from 20,000 to 100,000 people. 5. Detention period. The story of Nelson Mandela does not end, even though he was repeatedly detained because he often staged protests against the apartheid system. He was arrested on charges of inciting workers and going abroad without permission, on August 5, 1962. Subsequently, the author of Long Walk to Freedom was transferred to Robben Island and again to Pollsmoor Prison in Cape Town in April 1982. Here, Nelson Mandela was imprisoned along with other ANC activists such as Walter Sisulu, Andrew Mlangeni, Raymond Malaba, and Ahmed Kathrada. Here, Nelson languished in prison for approximately 27 years and was often sickly to the point of suffering from tuberculosis, TB. He underwent several operations, and while recovering from tuberculosis, Mandela was transferred to Victor Verster's prison located in the vicinity of Paarl. This prison treated Mandela more humanely because he lived in the warden's house. He used this opportunity to continue his studies until he finally managed to get a law degree. Mandela remained in prison until his release on February 11, 1990. The release was an order of President Frederick Willem de Klerk after being pressured by the rest of the world. Mandela and de Klerk were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Nelson Mandela's famous quote, "When people are strong-willed, they can overcome anything," seems to provide evidence of that. 6. President of South Africa. Democratic elections held on April 27, 1994 established Nelson Mandela as South Africa's first black president. He was sworn in on May 10, 1994, and Mandela's term lasted approximately 5 years, May 1994, June 1999. Meanwhile, the position of vice president was occupied by Frederick Willem de Klerk, which was then followed by Thabo Mbeki. In running his government, Nelson Mandela's main focus was to make the transition from apartheid politics to a government that favored the black population. One way is by using sporting events to build healthy relationships between blacks and whites. For example, the Rugby World Cup event in South Africa in 1995. While from the economic aspect, Mandela carried out various development programs such as opening new jobs, provision of proper health services, improvement of housing, and so on. Despite having various positive programs, there are also parties who are not satisfied with his leadership. One form of their criticism is the government's inaction in dealing with the AIDS problem. This virus also claimed the life of the president's son, Mgatho Mandela, on January 6, 2005. '7. Retirement activities. Nelson Mandela's term as president ended in June 1999. During his retirement, he was active in various social activities through the foundation he founded, the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, which was founded in 1995. The charity's goal is to help the lives of underprivileged and marginalized children. This great figure of the 20th century also founded the Nelson Mandela Foundation in 1999. His foundation focuses on preventing and eradicating HIV/AIDS, village development, and schools. He also founded the Rhodes Foundation in 2003, which provides postgraduate scholarships to African students. Through this institution, Mandela can help create human resources, HR, who are superior, have achievements, and have a good leadership spirit. In 2004, Nelson Mandela announced that he was stepping down from public life. Then he inaugurated the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory, his post-presidential office that has undergone a remodel. 8. Death of the father of the nation. Not much is known about Mandela's daily life or condition after he stepped down from the public eye. The last time he appeared in public was in 2010 during the World Cup in South Africa. On December 5, 2013, 3 years later, Nelson Mandela died. The cause of Nelson Mandela's death was a lung infection he had suffered since 2011. Previously, he had also undergone abdominal surgery at the Johannesburg Hospital in early 2012. Even though he has passed away, Nelson Mandela's role and struggle will always inspire the world. His life journey to elevate the dignity of the black race in Africa will be remembered throughout the ages. The reason is that Nelson Mandela's privileges set an example in opening the minds of the people of South Africa to look to the future. He also freed the South African nation from a prolonged prison of political vengeance. How did you inspire Nelson Mandela's short story above?
Facts. Nelson Mandela, as an influential figure in the 20th century, Mandela has a series of interesting stories throughout his life. Here are some facts about Nelson Mandela. 1. The meaning of his name. Mandela was born with the name Rolihlahla Mandela Dalibhunga. Literally, Rolihlahla means, pulling a tree branch, but in everyday language it means, troublemaker. Nor did he know why his first teacher Miss Emdingane gave him the English name Nelson as written in his autobiography Long Walk to Freedom. 2. One visitor a year. Nelson Mandela was imprisoned for more than 25 years under various labels such as terrorist and traitor by the apartheid government of South Africa. Most of his time, from 1968 and 1982, was spent on Robben Island where he performed hard labor including crushing rocks into gravel. Mandela was allowed only one visitor a year and wrote or received one letter every 6 months. Under very limited conditions, he was able to complete a law degree, organize protests in prison and help lead the movement against apartheid. 3. Married 3 times. There were 3 women who filled Nelson Mandela's heart during his lifetime. The woman who became his first wife was Evelyn Ntoko Mays, a cousin of one of Mandela's political teachers, Walter Sisulu. The two married in 1944 and that was when Mandela was 26 years old and Mays was 22 years old. The marriage blessed them with 4 children. Nelson Mandela's children were named Madiba Tembakile, Magatho Luanika, Makaziwa, and Maki. The family makes ends meet from Mace's salary who works as a nurse. While Mandela continued his education to earn a law degree. Unfortunately, the household that had been built for 13 years had to run aground. The two decided to divorce in 1958. On June 14, 1958, Mandela remarried to Winnie Madikizela, a woman who was 16 years his junior. The couple has 2 children, Zanani and Zindiswa. Unfortunately, the Nelson Mandela household had to run aground in the middle of the road because Winnie was rumored to be having an affair. Their relationship was strained so they decided to divorce in 1996. Mandela remarried Graca Machel, 27 his junior in 1998. His third wife is the widow of Samora Machel, the president of Mozambique who died in a plane crash in 1986. Mandela's life was much better and more comfortable after marrying Machel. Even though she is far apart in age, Graca Machel can balance, provide loyalty and warmth for her husband until death do us part. 4. Favorite food. Mandela was jailed for more than 25 years and was short of fresh food while he was behind bars. From being president to becoming one of the most famous people, he had a personal chef and has traveled the world. The question is, what is Mandela's favorite food? The answer is tripe, meat that comes from the stomach of animals. The statement was made by his grandson Ndileka Mandela. 5. Nelson Mandela's achievements. There are certainly many accomplishments for Nelson Mandela as the man won over 250 awards including the Nobel Peace Prize in 1993. Nelson Mandela has also received the highest civilian honors from more than a dozen countries including the United States and Russia. The United Nations has designated July 18 as Mandela Day, a celebration of freedom. It is a special day that is internationally recognized in his honor. Mandela has also received over 60 honorary degrees from universities around the world. 6. Love batik. Throughout his life, Nelson Mandela is known as a person who is synonymous with batik clothes and often uses batik at state events. Africans were rather reluctant to wear batik when Mandela was president because they respected him very much. New African people often use batik after Nelson Mandela left office. 7. Good at disguise. Mandela is a clever disguise because he often escapes capture. He even got the rank of Black Pimpernel because of his shrewdness. Various professions became his disguise, ranging from a driver, environmental worker, to a cook. He left South Africa changing to David Motsamei for another chart of Africa and England in 1962. His goal was to garner support for his liberation movement and the African National Congress, ANC. In addition, he received training in guerrilla warfare in Morocco and Ethiopia. That same year, he was caught posing as a driver with his activist friend, Cecil Williams. 8. Prison moment. If you read the biography of Nelson Mandela, the moment in prison became one of the most important moments in his life. He wrote an autobiography there, and the book was published under the title Long Walk to Freedom in 1994. While in prison, Mandela lost two close family members: his mother, who died in 1968, and his older brother, Tembi, who died a year later. He wasn't allowed to witness her funeral. On February 11, 1990, he was released from prison and urged his supporters to increase their pressure on the white minority government in South Africa. He also asked for international support to impose sanctions. 9. Leaving various tips that are often quoted to this day. Nelson Mandela's many memorable sayings. The following are some inspirational quotes from Nelson Mandela, or also known as quotes that can motivate you.
To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. Education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. I like friends who have independent minds because they tend to make you see problems from all angles. Lead from the back, and let others believe they are in front. It always seems impossible, until it is done. The key to being happy is to live life as if no one is watching, and express yourself as if everyone is listening. Do not judge me by my successes, judge me by how many times I fell down and got back up again. Real leaders must be ready to sacrifice all for the freedom of their people. If I had my time over, I would do the same again. So would any man who dares call himself a man. If a good head and a good heart are always a formidable combination. Everyone can rise above their circumstances and achieve success if they are dedicated to and passionate about what they do. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. While poverty persists, there is no true freedom. After climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. It is wise to persuade people to do things and make them think it was their own idea. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. It always seems impossible, until it is done. Few things make the life of a parent more rewarding and sweet as successful children. If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. When a man has done what he considers to be his duty to his people and his country, he can rest in peace. Having a friend whose mind is open will invite you to solve problems from a variety of different perspectives. Use your time as wisely as possible, then rest assured that at all times you are always ready to do right. A good heart and head will produce an extraordinary combination. One of the hardest things is not changing society, but changing ourselves. Winner is a dreamer who never knows the word surrender. Difficulties break some people, but strengthen others. No axe is sharp enough to cut the soul of a sinner who keeps on trying, armed with the hope that he will rise even at the end. When a man is rejected by his desire to live a life according to his heart's belief, there is no choice but to be a villain. I am not a saint, unless you define holiness as a person who is sinful but always tries. May all choices reflect your expectations, not real fears. I am the master of my destiny, as well as the captain of my soul. To be a great generation, there is dependency. You can be a great generation, let your greatness develop every time. There were many dark times when my human values were greatly tested, but I did not want and could not give in to despair. Because if so, there is defeat and death. Greed and power will turn brothers into opponents of their fellow brothers. The habit of paying attention to small things and valuing small greetings is one of the important signs of a good person. Together we must set out to fix defects in the past. A man who is most honest is when he admits he is lying. Money cannot provide success, freedom can make it happen. Through education, a farmer's child can become a doctor, and the child of a mining worker can become the head of a mine. If there are street children who beg to make ends meet, it is proof of unfinished work. If wealth is likened to a magnet, then poverty is a repellent. However, it is not uncommon for poverty to bring beautiful generosity towards others. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love, for love comes more naturally to the human heart than. We must use time wisely and forever realize that the time is always ripe to do right. When a man is denied the right to live the life he believes in, he has no choice but to become an outlaw. There is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find the ways in which you yourself have altered. As I have said, the first thing is to be honest with yourself. You can never have an impact on society if you have not changed yourself. Great peacemakers are all people of integrity, of honesty, but humility. Appearances matter, and remember to smile.
So, how do you know the biography and facts about Nelson Mandela? His inspiring life story can be a reference for young people around the world. What inspiration do you get from Mandela's life story?
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
Yeah, there's no mercy in this world, just hunger-thirsty persons. a curtain and you'll see the different vermin. We all have different burdens that all seem to cause disturbance. Yo, so do me a favor, don't treat me like a neighbor. Don't need the different flavors of your problems just to savor. I've got my